Assalamu alaikum. Hello everyone. Today we have the first lesson in Mega Goal 6. In the previous two lessons, we had introductory lessons where we talked about the main characteristics or the main skills that we are going to study in the following chapters or in the following units. In the previous lesson, we had a conversation lesson, and there was a conversation between two friends, Adnan and Umar. In this conversation, we learned something that is called deduction. We have learned something that is called deduction. And we talked about the meaning of deduction and we explained it with some example, but let's revise the word deduction again today. The word deduction or the deduction means when you guess the result of something according to what you have heard or what you have read. So when you deduce something, that means you jump to the conclusions according to what you have heard or read. Okay? We listened to this conversation between Adnan and Umar. Okay? And if you take a close look at these two underlined sentences, you will notice that these are deduction sentences. We will listen to this conversation one more time, then we will go after that to the following conversation where you have to fill the conversation with the words that deduce what is going to happen in the story or in the conversation.
Page 4. 3. Conversation. Listen and practice reading part 1 of the conversation in pairs. Then underline examples of deductions about the past and the present.
Hey, listen to this. It's about a man who survived a plane crash.
There can't be too many people who've lived to talk about a crash.
No, probably not. Apparently, the plane had crashed and burst into flames about 2 to 4 kilometers from the end of the runway. According to this article, 3 passengers survived the impact, but 2 of them died in hospital a few hours later.
He must have been the only survivor then.
Correct. He was thrown off the plane, strapped to his seat, and landed upright on the street.
You must be kidding. He can't have landed upright on the street. Do you believe it?
That's what the article says. Here's a picture of the man now. He was only 17 when it happened. It happened in January 1985. You can look it up.
I'll do that. Is there more?
Okay, now we have listened here when Omar deduced what's happened. He said that he must have been the only survivor. Why did Omar say that? Because he knew that unfortunately most of people who experience or been in a plane crash, they don't survive. So he said he must have been the only survivor then. Now we have another conversation between Adnan and Umar. We will listen only one time to this conversation and I want you to fill the blanks. And after that, we will go ahead to the slide where we have all the answers for each gap.
Here's another story of a man who beat the odds.
Not another plane crash.
No, this happened in Sweden. The man was trapped inside his car for 2 months.
2 months? Why didn't he try to get out?
He couldn't. His car was snowed over. He must have got snowed in on his way to the next town.
He can't have stayed alive for 2 months in the cold. What did he eat?
According to the interview, he ate snow and whatever snacks he had.
But that can't have been enough for 2 months. He must have been confused. It must have been less than 2 months.
Yes, well, the rescuers felt the same way. They couldn't believe he'd been there that long, but scientists confirmed that he must have gone into hibernation. They also said that an igloo effect must have been created by the insulation of the car, so he was able to survive.
Okay, here we have Adnan telling Omar another story about someone who survived being inside a car, or who was being trapped in the car under the snow for almost 2 months. And here we have the conversation with the correct answer. If you notice here, can't have, also can't have, must have. These are phrases that we use to deduce something. For example, he say here, he can't have stayed alive for 2 months in the cold. What did he eat? Today we are starting the first unit and the first lesson in this book. The first unit is everyone makes mistakes. Everyone makes mistakes. Mistakes means the error or the wrong doings or not the correct things. So everyone makes mistakes. In this unit, we will read some articles and paragraphs about stories of people, companies, and other things. These stories have people or companies who made huge mistakes in their own businesses. Today, we will start with listen and discuss, and we are used before any listening and discuss lessons and also the reading lessons that we have a warming up questions or statements that prepare us to understand what we are going to read in a better way. For example, we have here, how would you define the word mistake? How would you define the word mistake? Mistake means error, something not correct, okay? Something gone in the wrong way. So when you make a mistake, that means you didn't do the right thing. So this is called mistake. Number 2, what do you think the following quote means? Don't fear failure so much that you refuse to try new things. The saddest summary of a life contains 3 descriptions: could have, might have, and should have. This quote means, what do you think it means? It means that we have to try things even though that we might make mistakes. Number 3, accepting failure and hardship is often difficult. How do we endure such bad situations? What do you do if you do something and the consequences of this thing come as a wrong thing or as unpleasant results? How would you deal with this situation? How do you usually react to such situations? This question or the answer to this question vary from each one of us. Some people just go on, some people needs time to move on. So it depends on the person himself or herself. After that, we have mistakes. First mistake, second mistake, and another third, fourth. All these mistakes have been committed by people and companies. We will listen to these mistakes 2 times, and after that, we will do the quick check together. All I want you to do right now is that you pick up your pens, listen carefully to the audio recordings so you understand, or you will learn how to pronounce each word properly, and also you learn the new words once you hear them from within the context. Because if you listen to a word that you hear it for the first time and you read it or you hear it within a context, that makes it easier for you to understand it. So pick up your pens and let's go ahead and listen to these stories.
Unit 1. Everyone makes mistakes. Pages 6 and 7. 1. Listen and discuss.
Mistake. A company rejected the patent for the telephone. In 1876, The most important communications technology was the telegraph. A wealthy company called Western Union was in control of this technology. The president of the company, William Orton, was offered the patent for an invention called the telephone for $100,000. Orton sent a response to the 29-year-old inventor of the telephone, Alexander Graham Bell. It said, "After careful consideration of your invention, while it is a very interesting novelty, we have come to the conclusion that it has no commercial possibilities. What use could this company make of an electrical toy?" Bell kept the patent and created his own telephone company, which became the largest in the U.S. The patent Bell had offered Western Union eventually became the most valuable patent in history. Orton could have made one of the best deals in business history. Instead, he may have made the worst business mistake in history.
Mistake. The Titanic ignored warnings about icebergs. On April 14, 1912, the RMS Titanic, the largest and most modern passenger ship of its time, hit an iceberg and sank. This resulted in the deaths of 1,517 people. Yet incredibly, this tragedy could have easily been avoided. On the day the Titanic sank, it had received 5 warnings from other ships about heavy ice in the area. However, the captain was not worried. In fact, he even increased the speed of the ship so that it could arrive in New York a day earlier than expected. That evening, while the Titanic's radio operator was sending out personal messages from the passengers, he received a 6th ice warning. This one warned of an iceberg directly in the path of the Titanic. The operator was supposed to give the message to the captain, but busy with his task, he put the message aside. It never reached the captain. If it had, the Titanic tragedy might never have happened.
Okay, now let's listen again. Then we will discuss some of the vocabulary in these 2 mistakes.
Unit 1. Everyone makes mistakes. Pages 6 and 7. 1. Listen and discuss.
Mistake. A company rejected the patent for the telephone. In 1876, the most important communications technology was the telegraph. A wealthy company called Western Union was in control of this technology. The president of the company, William Orton, was offered the patent for an invention called the telephone for $100,000. Orton sent a response to the 29-year-old inventor of the telephone, Alexander Graham Bell. It said, "After careful consideration of your invention, while it is a very interesting novelty, we have come to the conclusion that it has no commercial possibilities. What use could this company make of an electrical toy?" Bell kept the patent and created his own telephone company, which became the largest in the U.S. The patent Bell had offered Western Union eventually became the most valuable patent in history. Orton could have made one of the best deals in business history. Instead, he may have made the worst business mistake in history.
Mistake. The Titanic ignored warnings about icebergs. On April 14, 1912, the RMS Titanic, the largest and most modern passenger ship of its time, hit an iceberg and sank. This resulted in the deaths of 1,517 people. Yet incredibly, this tragedy could have easily been avoided. On the day the Titanic sank, it had received 5 warnings from other ships about heavy ice in the area. However, the captain was not worried. In fact, he even increased the speed of the ship so that it could arrive in New York a day earlier than expected. That evening, while the Titanic's radio operator was sending out personal messages from the passengers, he received a 6th ice warning. This one warned of an iceberg directly in the path of the Titanic. The operator was supposed to give the message to the captain, but busy with his task, he put the message aside. It never reached the captain. If it had, the Titanic tragedy might never have happened.
Okay, now we will talk firstly about two words. The first one is the word patent. It means the certificate of intellectual property over something. It means that you have the intellectual property of that thing. Okay, so that means this invention belongs to you and nobody has the right to do anything with it before they ask your permission. After that, we have the word inventor. Inventor means the one or the person who start or who creates something from the scratch. For example, Alexander Graham Bell is the inventor of the telephone because there wasn't a telephone before and Alexander started the telephone from nothing. He started it from the scratch, so we call him an inventor. After that, we have another mistake that was committed by the Russian. It is called here, or it is titled as Russia sold Alaskan gold to the US. Now let's go ahead and listen to this story.
Mistake. Russia sold Alaskan gold to the U.S. Alaska had been considered a burden rather than an asset by Russia for a long time. It was remote, indefensible, and of little benefit. So when William Seward, U.S. Secretary of State, began negotiations on his own initiative, he expected to encounter some opposition. However, the outline of the deal was accepted by the cabinet, and the agreement was signed in March 1867, transferring Alaska to the United States for a payment of $7.2 million. However, the purchase of a seemingly desolate and mostly frozen land was greeted with criticism by the press and the public. Alaska was referred to as Seward's Folly, Seward's Icebox, or President Johnson's Polar Bear Garden, attitudes that must have changed drastically after the discovery of gold. Russia should have investigated potential resources before selling the land to the U.S. at the price of about 2.5 cents per acre.
Okay, now we have the first word that we are going to explain, which is burden. The word burden means something or a heavy task that you have to do. When something that you don't like to do and something is not easy task for you is called burden. After that, we have indefensible. Indefensible means something that you can't defend, something that is so wrong that you can't even defend it. After that, we have another story, which is about the mistake Coca-Cola company committed. Now, let's go ahead and listen to the story of the Coca-Cola and their successful formula.
Mistake. Coca-Cola tampered with their successful formula. Coca-Cola was launched in the 1880s. By 1980, it had been the most popular soft drink in the world for nearly 100 years. However, by that time, Coke had more competition, and its sales figures started slipping. In an effort to boost sales, Coca-Cola created a new, improved formula. This new formula was tested in 200,000 taste tests, and the results were clear. Most people much preferred the flavor to the original Coke. The Coca-Cola Company decided to stop producing the formula they had been using for 100 years and to replace it with new Coke. This was an enormous marketing mistake. People were outraged that the original Coke was no longer available, and the new Coke was a flop. Coca-Cola executives must have been surprised. they had to get rid of new Coke quickly and bring back the original formula.
Okay, now we have the last part of our lesson today, which is the quick check. On the left side, we have 6 words: boost, endure, flop, novelty, outraged, and tampered. And on the right side, we have 6 phrases or words that describe or define the words on the right side. Number 1, the word boost means raise. Number 2, endure. We talked about the word endure is to put up with something. The answer is B. Number 3, flop is a failure, and the answer is D. Number 4, novelty is C, a new thing. Number 5, outraged is very angry. Letter A, very angry. And the last one, number 6, tampered is E, which is interfered with something. Thank you all for attending our lesson today, and I wish you enjoy the rest of the day. Assalamu alaikum.